Welcome to Beyond My Crisis. I'm your co-host, Ron Rosnick, and I'm with Vivian Gaspar. Today, Taryn Abrahams is here with an extensive clinical and mental health background with over 24 years of experience in corporate America. Taryn is focused on educating people and companies about sexual harassment in the workplace through education and bystander intervention training. She hopes to create an honest forum to tackle this crisis in the workplace. Thank you, Taryn. What do you say about that?
So what comes to mind is #MeToo and Time's Up. These are two current examples on the momentum that has been created around this issue in the workforce. Sexual harassment has been around since men and women have worked together. And, this has been going on for years and years. And what we are finding is that even with human resources in place and with laws and regulations in place, it is not only not improving, we are starting to find that it's actually getting worse. I mean, all it takes is turning on the television and you hear a new case.
Can you give me some statistics about this?
Sure. So according to EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, their statistics show that last year alone, of the 30% of claims that made its way to their desk, 74% of them, the victim was a woman. So I want to preface that for today's conversation and for your audience to understand that anybody can be a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace.
26% are men, or other, I guess?
Absolutely. So you can be male, female, regardless of sexual orientation or cultural background. So I just want to make sure your audience understands that it doesn't discriminate, but it's majority a female issue.
But in the news, we hear the high-profile cases of politicians or media company presidents doing something wrong, but that's the extreme.
Right.
The reality is everyday people working in the workplace, this occurs.
Absolutely.
How do you define sexual harassment?
Well, so let me go back to one point. 75% of women actually admit to experiencing some form of sexual harassment. So this is an epidemic. I mean, this is a major problem, right?
But maybe men don't admit it.
Perhaps. And I think we're going to talk a little bit further about why people don't come forward. There's a lot of reasons why people don't speak up. But I feel like with the civil rights movement, that wasn't just a black issue. Holocaust it's not just a Jewish issue. And I feel like with sexual harassment, this is not just a female issue. This is a community issue. And I feel like it is a prime opportunity and a very important moment in our history to really use the momentum that we have so far with this issue and continue to shine the light on it.
Right. I feel we have to reshape the mindset of how humans interact with each other.
Absolutely.
And up the level of respect. I'm a joker. I joke around a lot. I may crack a joke that occasionally may be on the borderline, but I don't mean to offend necessarily. I just mean to have some spice in life, but not to harm somebody or traumatize somebody. So how do we prevent that?
Well, first thing is it's important to have a clear definition on what it looks like, right? And I think what's happened, especially men don't know how to act anymore. They're afraid to go out for lunch with a female coworker. They're afraid to compliment a woman's suit
because they're
afraid they're going to cross the line.
Right.
So I feel like education is critical. So the definition, according to EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, sexual harassment is any unwanted behavior of sexual nature or conduct that directly impacts the person's ability to do their job, which creates a hostile environment.
So let's understand this for lay people. So if you're impeded, if you feel uncomfortable doing your job, then it could be construed as a sexual harassment
Absolutely.
issue.
So let's talk further about the definition, right? So there's many different kinds of ways to harass someone. And I feel like now that internet is mainstream in our lives, it creates a lot of different mediums and ways for people to harass. So there's two main types. There's quid pro quo, which is this for that, right? So, and typically, the harasser is in a position of power. They're either in a manager or in management, right? So if you do X, Y, and Z sexual nature, you will get your promotion.
That's very clear and obvious.
Right?
I mean, I really think that our audience is going to
Sure.
understand that.
That's quid pro quo. That's important to understand. Then there's also hostile environment. And hostile environment is inappropriate touching, inappropriate gestures, inappropriate looks or stares, staring up and down someone in a sexual way.
But is that subjective,
But I feel like it has to be, there's two components to this. If a case ever ended up in the courts, they're going to want to know two things. They're going to want to know, was it severe? And they're going to want to know, was it pervasive? Okay? So the key thing to hear is if someone does something once inappropriately, we're not going to go and quickly define it as sexual harassment in the workplace, okay? But it could be considered if it creates a hostile environment. Something can happen once and have a trickle effect. The point being is it has to have a direct impact on the victim. It has to affect their ability to do their job. Some people start calling out sick. Some people ignore certain daily tasks because they don't want to come across that person or they don't want to come in contact. So the full picture, you have to look at the full picture.
Okay.
One isolated incident isn't considered sexual harassment unless it creates a hostile environment situation.
So a guy or a girl can ask someone out. Do you want to go out for drinks?
Right.
Or I like you. Do you want to
Right.
hang
So
out?
let's
Do you
play
want-
that out, right?
Okay.
So assuming the man asks the woman out, the woman says no. He persists. He keeps asking.
Well-
He now sends emails. He comments on
Right.
her body. He comments on, oh, I'm going to treat you well and I'm going to do this if I take you out. He doesn't stop at no.
So what are other parameters for this?
So again, I think the key thing here is the severity of the situation. If you're unsure about whether or not something is appropriate or inappropriate, I really encourage people to utilize the resources on the internet. I would encourage you to seek legal counsel, free consultation.
There's a lot of stuff on the internet. It's like too much
It is.
information. But you mentioned bystander intervention. What is that?
Sure. So this is really interesting because, going back to my comment before, we have human resources, we have laws and regulations in place, but why is this still an issue? I personally believe that there's a lot of reasons why people don't stand up and speak up, right? The victim oftentimes feels intimidated, they have fear that they're going to lose their job, there's going to be some form of retaliation.
So bystander intervention is...
But I'm just kind of talking a little bit more about the victim here and why they don't stand up. And we are finding that the more people involved, the higher the chance and the higher the likelihood that the victim will feel empowered to create change and to speak up.
Okay.
There's been a lot of studies around bystander training, and I think this is perhaps the missing link in sexual harassment training at companies. We always talk about what's appropriate, like you even made a comment. We know what's appropriate.
What I'm saying is bystander. What does that mean? Someone onlooking, two people having a conversation.
Absolutely.
So a coworker, or maybe a surveillance camera.
So we're having a board meeting, right? And there's a couple of people in the room, mixed of men and women.
Right.
And again, for argument's sake, we're going to make the woman the victim. A man comments on a woman's breasts.
Right.
So a bystander would be somebody in that conference room that overheard or saw that interaction.
Right.
Now, most people mind their business, right? They kind of let it go. Some people laugh it off when they get nervous. They don't know what to do, basically. Most people do nothing, right? So the whole concept behind bystander intervention is when other people get involved, it gives the victim borrowed hope, motivation, it provides accountability, and sometimes all it could take is a male to say, that was not a very appropriate comment you made in the conference room.
But anybody could say that to somebody else.
Anybody can, but the point is speak up.
Kind of helping improve the standard. Okay,
Absolutely.
so that's what bystander intervention is.
Yes.
So we encourage our coworkers to speak up, but kindly. You don't have to,
you're
give it to
setting
somebody.
the tone and you're letting them know that you don't think it's appropriate, okay? And the whole notion behind bystander intervention is the behavior of the perpetrator, we have found, is directly impacted by the reactions of the people around them.
So we have to pay attention to that.
So we have to pay attention to that. I feel like this is perhaps the missing link to sexual harassment training at the workplace, we always focus on empowering the victim and getting the victim to speak up. But the reality is most victims don't speak up. I believe the statistics that we have are not fully accurate. I feel like there are probably many more people that want to speak up that don't, because of fear of retaliation, fear of losing their job, fear of the stigma around being a victim of sexual harassment. So I believe that the missing piece to this is educating everybody in the workplace on what part they can play in helping the victim. We find that bystander training is important because it gives everybody the responsibility to become the solution in this problem. And we also find, and when I talk about bystanders, I'm talking about witnesses, I'm talking about people that...
co-workers that
co-workers,
are
right,
around
people that are in your
observe.
environment. Exactly. Like, for instance, you're in a boardroom and there's a mix of men and women. And, again, for this argument's sake, I'm going to make the victim a woman. A man will make a comment about a woman's figure, and it's of sexual nature. And typically, if you observe people in a group setting, people get quiet, their body language change, they get squirmish, but
Right.
a lot of people don't stand up and speak up. So the missing piece to this, I think, is that people that witness or are privy to sexual harassment occurring in the workplace, it has now become the responsibility of everybody to speak up, because we find that a bystander gives the victim borrowed hope, borrowed motivation,
Yes.
as well as accountability. And
Right.
we find that also too, in talking about the perpetrator, bystanders typically will, we've also noticed that, the behavior and actions of a perpetrator is directly affected by how people react to their behavior. So if people stay silent, what is that message sending, right? So I truly believe this is not just a victim issue. This is a community issue.
And we need employee training too, like diversity training courses.
So you bring up a great point, right? So most corporations, I think the law is if you have more than 5 employees, you have to offer sexual harassment training. And what's happened, and listen, the internet is a wonderful thing, but what's happened is companies have, decided to utilize these online courses, which are inexpensive, which are extremely efficient, right? You basically send your employee a link, a WebEx link. You log on at your desk, at your home.
Right.
You watch a very dry, boring PowerPoint presentation,
Okay.
right? And then you answer a bunch of questions that a 5-year-old could probably answer. And then the company can check the box off and they feel good that that person has been trained.
Is that effective?
It has been proven to be extremely ineffective. And
Ineffective.
and I'll tell you why.
We need in-person, live
It's impersonal.
communication. We need
There's no interaction,
Right.
right? And there's no accountability. And I feel like although the internet offers efficiency, offers, better pricing for companies, and it's just easier, especially for remote sales force.
Sure. But ultimately, it's not cheaper for companies if there's lawsuits
guess
that they've
what?
got to defend.
Exactly right. And you know what? Live trainings isn't that much more expensive.
And it's fun, and it could boost morale,
Yes.
and it can help your workplace improve dramatically, right?
What has been shown and proven in studies, there's been some recent studies, and the research shows that the best platform and forum for sexual harassment training is small group, under 25 people, and you do employee training and management training, but not only sexual harassment training, but bystander training as well. Everybody plays a role in this.
Wow, I really want to thank Taryn Abrahams for giving great information. I've learned so much today as a man to improve the workplace. And when we improve it together, we create an efficient environment, we create opportunities to generate more income, to provide for our families, and have just a great community together. Thank you. Welcome to Beyond My Crisis. I'm your co-host, Ron Rosnick, and I'm with Vivian Gaspar. And today we have Jackie Raia. She's a trustee on the National Association for Multicultural Affairs and Transplantation. Her experience with organ and tissue donation is a very personal one. 8 years ago, her mother, Ina Lou, was killed in an automobile accident. This started her path in organ and tissue donation advocacy. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
A heartfelt intro to hear. Why is this important to you? How did this occur?
That's the whole thing, is that you don't know when this is going to occur. And that's why this is so important for me to come and visit the show today. So thank you so much for having me. It's an unplanned event, always. No one plans to be...
So what happened?
So I just picked up my mom at the airport, and we got onto the highway, and within 10 minutes, a tractor trailer hit us. Thank you so much. Truly, truly the darkest hour of my life, but for the fact that my son, who was 15 at the time, and I both miraculously walked away from that. My mom, unfortunately, did not wake up from that.
So in the darkest hour, you have risen above, and you've created something for yourself and other people now. This is your inspiration today.
My mom is my inspiration. There are lots of people who made that happen, though. If it wasn't for the first responders who got to us on the turnpike so quickly and got my mom to a point where she could get on a ventilator and get to a hospital, without that, she would not have been able to be an organ and tissue donor.
I see.
She could have given her tissue, but not her organs.
So the organs must be kept in a pristine condition.
Pristine, beyond pristine.
Beyond
actually.
pristine.
Yes.
And she had been a donor.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
So I am Chinese, born on the island of Jamaica, and I married a French, Canadian, Italian guy, so the culture in my home is very, very vast. One of the things, though, that we don't do is talk about death and organ donation, and what you want to have happen after you pass away is one of those things that are just not spoken about. So unfortunately, my mom, like a lot of people, would designate herself a donor at motor vehicle. When she renewed her license, she didn't do that, nor did we talk about it. So the unfortunate thing is that we made the decision for my mom.
Oh.
Fortunately, though, because of the way she lived her life, because she was a very, very giving person, would literally give you the last penny in her wallet and the last shirt on her back. When we were in the hospital and she was in ICU, she was on the ventilator, and the doctors told us that there was just no brain function. And had it not been for this machine that was keeping her heart pumping and her lungs breathing, she was gone.
So
that made her an ideal candidate for organ donation. So they approached my family, my 3 siblings and I, and said, "Do you think that your mom would want to save lives?"
Wow.
And we said, "What do you mean by that?" And they said, "Your mom is in a position right now to save many, many other people who are on the waiting list for an organ."
How many other people?
So currently there's 115,000 people in the United States waiting for an organ transplant, right? Each individual, each donor, like my mom, has the capacity to save 8 people with an organ donation. So the heart, the 2 kidneys, the 2 lungs, the liver, the pancreas, you can save lives with that.
8 people. That's
8
huge.
people. With tissue donation, what we're talking about there is your corneas, your skin, your bone, your heart valves. You can heal the lives of an additional 75. So my mom, on this horrific night, saved 3 people with her 2 kidneys and her liver, and she touched and healed the lives of 43 others.
Wow.
With her tissue donation. So now, just because someone has the capability to donate 8 organs to save other people's lives, it doesn't generally happen that they can give so many organs.
Because it has to be fresh. So
they're all because they're on a ventilator in the hospital.
Yeah.
But perhaps mom's heart had some something wrong with it. Or it didn't meet the criteria that the heart surgeon, the transplant surgeon wanted to for a patient that was waiting. So there is some very strict criteria that has to be met, but her 2 kidneys and her liver were good to go, and she saved 3 people.
So do you focus on organ transplantation from people who have died, or people who want to donate one of their own kidneys for a living person?
So we do both. Primarily, though, in my world, what I have been concentrating on is deceased donation.
Okay.
Kidneys make up about 82% of the 115,000 people waiting, and the average wait is anywhere from 6 to 7 years
6 to 7
for someone
years.
who's waiting for a kidney, right? So you've been hearing a lot about this live donation, right, where a living person says, well, I only need 1 kidney. I will give someone, they might know them, they might not know them, I'll give them one of my kidneys, and if it matches, then they can receive the kidney.
Right.
But if it doesn't, they will start these chains. And I want to say the longest chain that I've heard of is about 30 some odd people, where one person says, okay, I want to give, but the person I want to give to, I don't match. So we'll keep looking for a kidney that matches, and we'll start the swapping, if you will.
Yes.
So, but my main concentration is in deceased donation.
Wow, that's an incredible thing. So is there apprehension from people to sign their driver's license card to say, I want to be an organ donor?
Of course,
What's
because
the
that
fear?
solidifies it. I mean, people are afraid, like my family, we're afraid to even talk about it. So the fear is, who wants to talk about that? It's death, it's dying, it's me gone. There's also a disbelief that, or a misbelief, that if something happened to me and they see my driver's license and they say, oh, an organ donor, let's not save her because we need livers and kidneys.
That's something
And
on The
that-
Simpsons or something like that.
But we say that, but all kidding aside, when I speak to the community, that is one of the top 2 reasons why even people in the healthcare industry will say that there is a mistrust, that if first responder sees that or someone in the hospital sees that, they're not going to take the best
So
care
let's
of them.
say the truth right now. Let's debunk this myth.
The-
What is the truth?
The truth is that they have to take better care of you, even though they know that, like my mom, you had no more brain function.
So they have to take better care of you, because if they don't, the organs are not transplantable.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. So when you say pristine, it has to be beyond pristine.
So basically, you're not just crushing the myth, you're actually telling people, if you want to be taken care of even better, you sign that organ donation card,
yes.
and then you'll be cared for.
Well, the truth of the matter is less than 1% of people who pass away can actually give the gift of organs.
So-
Because of the situation in which it occurs, you have to be in the hospital on a ventilator.
Okay.
So the criteria is very stringent, and so that is why it's so important to share this information with you today, because the more people that we can get to understand that organ donation, it shouldn't be a scary thing. There's really nothing but great things to happen, because you're not going to use them anymore. You're not going to need
Right.
them anymore. Why not give it to someone else who, and it's not just the patient who's waiting, right?
Right.
It is their mom, their dad,
Sure.
their children.
So is there another obstacle? Are people thinking oh, my religion, or I don't want to lose my organs when I'm dead, then I can't be reincarnated,
Right.
or maybe a DNA something? I mean,
Yeah,
is there
yeah.
any...
Religion is a huge barrier. There are some religions that they thought, and maybe 5-10 years ago, in Judaism, for instance, you have to leave the way you arrived, right? So tattoos, piercings, and things like that. Now, in Judaism, it is said to be organ donation and tissue donation is said to be the greatest mitzvah
Oh.
that you can give to anyone.
And-
And so now they are one of our biggest champions across the world.
Wow, so a
Yes.
mitzvah is a blessing. So now you've got a large constituency of donors now.
Well, we hope that it gets larger, because even though the great majority, over 96% of people would say yes to organ donation if you ask them. If I were to ask you, 97 or 6% would say, yes, I would want to give organs. Yet, only 54% of people in the United States have actually registered and said yes to donation.
When I do my driver's license, it only happens every few years, so it's not always convenient, or I may not think of it. How can people donate otherwise?
So I'm so glad you asked, because there's a very new way and a very universal way that people can go and donate or say that they want to be a registered donor now. And so it's very simple. As a matter of fact, if you have your iPhone, you can go on right now to registerme.org, and within 2 minutes, you can be a registered donor.
So I just have to take out my phone, my iPhone. I have an iPhone.
Okay.
And go to registerme.org.
Yes.
Okay, and I see this says Donate Life. Valerie, liver recipient, and there's a button right here that says register to be a donor. It looks very simple. So if I tap that button, if my internet was working. Oh, I see. So just put your name, your date of birth, the last 4 digits of your social, your address, and then submit. That's it. It's one form, takes 2 minutes, and it's just done.
And then what's great about this is that it doesn't expire. You did it. Thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you. Thank you.
I've done it too.
Okay, so here's the more important thing. You did it, and you did it.
Yes.
But did you tell anybody that you did it?
I didn't.
Okay, so there you go.
Well, we're going to tell people now. I am an organ donor from, and you're okay. So we both are. So please donate. That's what I would like to say.
I know my children.
Oh, yes, so those who are very close to you, you want to make sure that they know what your wishes are. Because there have been issues where you are a registered donor, you're in the database, and the parents say, oh, no. She didn't tell me that she wanted to do that.
Oh.
You're not going to do that.
So tell your family as well. So as a trustee on this organization, what is your goal? What is the goal of the organization in the next year or 2 years? What's the plan?
Our goal really is to, across every culture, across every human being in the United States, is to have this conversation. Not even so much to go on registerme.org, but to have the conversation with everyone in your circle. To say, if anything ever happens to me, I want to be an organ donor, so please follow through. What do you want to have happen? Right? And then, yes, go on registerme.org. Register to be official organ donor.
That's great.
But that is what we want, because there are 22 people a day dying, waiting for an organ. So that doesn't have to be. But a lot of people have these misbeliefs, or they just don't tell others, and organs are being wasted, lives are being wasted.
Wow.
And so that's why this is so important.
Super great. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate this message, this really great public service that you're getting around to people. And I would say, just go to registerme.org, fill in your name, tell your family members about it, and just express to them that the gift of life, you can keep giving and giving. Thank you so much for watching the show and contributing.